Thank you, everyone, and thanks to Coral for reminding everyone about that province down in the southern part of our country, Western Cape. As Andrew introduced, I'm the manager of the Table Mountain Fund. We are managed by WWF, so I'm a WWF employee, managing an entirely separate body of work. We fund projects. We are not the implementer of the projects. So if you see your pictures coming up, thanks for giving me permission to use it today. And I'm sure I'm going to be acknowledging a lot of the work that people in this room are currently involved in. So the Table Mountain Fund is a capital fund which is supporting conservation of the CFR, the Cape Floristic region. I'll keep my acronyms down to a minimum. So essentially we're basically this elusive endowment fund that everybody wishes they had set up already. It was established back in 1998 by WWF SA at the request of those concerned with the conservation of the remaining natural area around the Cape Peninsula. Hence the somewhat misleading name of Table Mountain Fund. No, we're not only conserving the Table Mountain, we work across the entire fynbos biome. And to date, the fund has supported over about 215 projects. We take on, our current portfolio sits at about 50 projects for this year, and we take on roughly, I'd say, about 15 to 20 each year, because they can run over 3 years. Our granting process, there's an annual call that happens in April each year, so please look out for that. And our funding limits are set at 215,000 Rand per project per year for a maximum of 3 years. But there's quite a large degree of flexibility within TMF, and there's an element of project development that can happen outside, prior, post, during the formal granting process. And we like to consider ourselves approachable, responsive, and relevant, which brings us to the talk today. So we pride ourselves in being responsive to what the priority conservation needs are for the CFR, and this is obviously informed by the strategies, both national and provincial. I was relying quite heavily on the introductory talk on the National Biodiversity Economy Strategy, but anyway, I'll just pick up 2 points in what we've adopted in TMF. And the definition of biodiversity economy holds very strongly. I think we all understand that. And although the national strategy focuses heavily on wildlife and bioprospecting, wildlife is not, Western Cape is not exactly the leader of the pack when it comes to a wildlife industry. But the strategy does recognize that there's a need to bring in the subsectors over time and to really buff up that strategy. It also highlights that the biodiversity economy should be seen as a key driver of economic transformation in South Africa. It's politically palatable at the moment, and TMF is trying to support that in whatever way we can. And the synergies are reflected within our strategic objectives. So we have 8 strategic objectives, and 2 of them speak very clearly into the strategy about promoting investment into ecological infrastructure and biodiversity, but for the purpose of sustaining sustainable livelihoods and job creations is a standalone objective. And then also support the growth and development of new entrants into the conservation sector. I'm going to run through, I think I've only got 5 projects that I'm going to touch on, give examples that we've been funding. The first one it's been called Urbanisation, so it speaks to the bioprospecting sector. But this is really, we've been supporting the informal sector. There was talk on this yesterday, our bossies doctors and our Rasta herbalists. And this is working with Sustainable Livelihoods Foundations. I don't know if you know Leif Peterson, but he really is that perfect middle mark between the scientists and the Rastas. Is a great champion to be leading a project such as this. And the project was aiming to mitigate the impacts of wild plant harvesting in Cape Town, okay, and looking both at research, trying to understand how big a deal are we actually dealing with here, and then having a collaborative, coming up with collaborative solutions to the problems. And one of the spin-offs is they've created open street gardens in these highly impoverished areas, which are propagated by the Rasta herbalist communities themselves. And amazingly enough, the plants are not being, such poor resolution. They're not being stolen. So we're still waiting this project has only just come to a close, so we'll see how long they last and what the future looks like. And really it's been encouraging and facilitating broader inclusivity into conservation. Second project, unlocking the speckworm-based economy in the Klein Karoo. This is funded through to the Gourits Cluster Biosphere Reserve in collaboration with WESA. We're really excited about this one, where we're trying to develop an institutional model for speckworm-based carbon trading. And obviously at the same time, this is while restoring speckworm, degraded speckworm thicket and storing carbon, sequestering carbon. It's a component of the greater project, the GCBC Jobs for Carbon project. Watch this space. Third is where we're supporting NCC, and your chair for the session, also together with WWF SA. I wasn't sure what to call this project, but really about looking at the industry behind chipping, and is there value in actually chipping and selling this alien biomass that's been chopped down. The picture on the right is a site that we went to go visit recently where TMF supported the alien clearing, and they did a great job of chopping down the trees, and we get out and it's 6 months later and the trees are all lying there because there is no industry yet that can actually, it doesn't make economic sense to do anything with it. So we're hoping that what we're going to end up with is a model that can be applied on the private landowner, or maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a conservancy, maybe you need to team up with your neighbors to make it work. But some way in which it makes economic sense to actually cut down your trees, chip it, sell it. Ecotourism, big one in the Western Cape, and we seem to be funding a lot of hiking and mountain bike trails. So where's our epic cyclist from earlier this morning? Langeberg Biodiversity Initiative Corridor. This is the Grootvadersbos Conservancy, where we funded, it's 150 kilometers of mountain bike trail and 30 kilometers of trail, of just running, trail, walking, hiking trail. And really it's about developing business plans again. And what we've seen in this area is that 5 people were employed during the construction phase, and 2 have got full-time employment coming out of the project since. So we are already seeing money coming in that is able to support 2 people permanently. And a small project, a 600,000 Rand investment, I think that's pretty good bang for your buck. This is a new project just signed up, also Ecotourism, with Grootbos Foundation, joint looking at protected area expansion, and again this ecotourism opportunity. They're working at the stretch of land is about 120 odd kilometers, and they're really trying to come up with an alternative to agriculture for the area. What other sector can they bring in to support these sustainable livelihoods in the area? Again, coming up with business plans for the region. I think I've got 2 more. I wasn't able to quantify this in time for today, but a huge amount of our projects are really looking at training and educating, just that human capital investment, development and investment. The amount of nature guides that have come through TMF training, field rangers, accredited, non-accredited, micro MBAs, NQF level 2s to level 4s it's endless, and we've got great partners helping us in this regard. And this is something that I'm fairly new to Table Mountain Fund, but I'm going to be wanting to track this because I think this is a great indicator to reflect our progress. And then finally is our small grants. And our small grants programs are 15,000 Rand, between 15 and 30,000 Rand max. And what we're trying to achieve is less about an environmental outcome, and it's more about the human development or establishing a relationship with nature. So quite often we get asked, really, is there much value in all this administrative burden for 15,000 Rand project? But then our response is your indicator is wrong. What you're measuring is wrong. For example, a lot of our applicants have quite literally never filled out an application form. They do not have email addresses. They do not have bank accounts. We help them set up NGOs, will register themselves in an NGO and open up bank accounts. And they get 15,000 Rand. It's very, very small, but we're seeing some of them come back in the second round and apply through the bigger grants, and that's just great success for TMF. And I think that is my that is my last slide. Thank you.